Dylan, we're discussing salaries.
All right.
Well, and just the general premise of the notion of all of these heavy hitters that are with Messi and friends, and we know that with Messi it's 20, at least it was according to the MLSPA. Then the value attached to it with sponsors and such, you had some folks listing it as 54 to 60. Looking at Alba and Busquets making $1 million base, $1.5 million base. Luis Suarez coming in. Naturally, our eyebrows are raised, John Belushi style, sitting there going, this certainly cannot be what it is unless they are truly comfortable with their surroundings. And the point that I was making is that it would be great if, like Major League Soccer, if like other sports, the NBA, the NFL, National Hockey League, we knew where folks were coming from when it came to salary figures, so you wouldn't have to sit there and come up with all these NIL deals and just let the numbers be where the numbers are. And I think you're doing a disservice to the fans in Major League Soccer by not having this information readily available instead of having to fish for it and then try to figure out where all the holes are.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. It's a shame that we have to wait till like halfway through the season to get any real salary numbers, and it's only because it's through the Players Association.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like everyone else, like you start doing all the math and like, well, Atlanta spends this and Chicago spends that. So, if I'm 100% with you, I wish there was more transparency in that. So, you had a better idea of how your club is spending versus other teams, and also how a certain salary fits into the mix.
And I mean, because we sit there and we can do trade predictors and all these kinds of things in other leagues, and I think you're doing a disservice to the league by not letting everybody sit there and know really, was it really 1.6 that Gareth Bale got to play 12 matches at LAFC? It's great to have the heavy hitters here, but then you sit there and you're like, okay, something's got to be going on under the table. We have NIL deals with Messi and such. And the reason I brought that up is because of silly season, and it started with one of those websites that's attached to a club in the league in the Middle East that we neither really condone, endorse, or give any full credence to. Karim Benzema apparently has now been given an offer by LAFC. John Thorrington wants to go down this road again and possibly bring Benzema over. And it was $1.6 million. Karim Benzema, come on over. And when you know that it's got to be something different. Have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, clearly these are part of the conversations, right? Like, hey, listen, this is our salary cap. Here's where we could fit you in, and it's a big old but. Here's how else we can compensate you.
Have you heard about with these big ticket items about other ways that folks are compensating? I mean, is it the room and board thing? Are we literally looking at it like we do in college football? Have you heard of the other, outside of Messi and friends? Have you heard about other creative ways that folks are letting folks, come in under salary? Have you heard about any of the other extras that are attached in times past?
No, just like you said, just that, and then the original, like the OG Messi and friends being Beckham, and which led to Messi and friends, right? So his ability to get at a steep discount, the ability to buy a club, right, or have a club, have a franchise. So outside of that, no, I haven't heard. It was funny in the early days of Red Bull. Not that it was put into any contracts, but there were plenty of Red Bull to be had for all who wanted it. So I think there were big refrigerators and stock full of all different flavors and sugar-free and regular Red Bull. So, which still, by the way, I believe to be a fact, it's still the cheapest drink at Red Bull Arena. Cheaper than water.
Really?
I believe so.
Wow. I did not know that. As I drift into my Johnny Carson for the morning. That's wild, wacky stuff there, Dylan. I did not know that. When it comes to silly season, and Jarrett's going to hop in here in a second, let's start. Since we're talking Inter Miami, we'll go ahead and discuss the new. We talked Luis Suarez. Julian Gressel to Inter Miami. You know, that has been a topic of conversation here. My biggest topic of conversation with Julian Gressel is, bruh, where are you going to play?
Yeah, I mean, other than joining, the circus a little bit there, and being in Miami, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, there's already a guy in DeAndre Yedlin who's ahead of you. I don't think you're playing up the field, so no, that's a good question, and it's weird because, and maybe you guys could answer this better since you more closely watched Gressel when he was in his Atlanta days, but like this guy is one of the best crossers of the ball in the league, right?
Yeah.
Which is a huge value. I just don't. Why has he been so well traveled? Like it's confusing to me. Like you would think that's an asset you'd want to keep. I mean, obviously, we spoke a moment ago about salaries and the caps and how to sneak people through, and maybe some people are cap victims. Maybe he's a cap victim. I don't know. I do know. I mean, obviously, it was documented he wanted to come back east from Vancouver. But yeah, it's weird that he's, what is this, his fifth team now?
98th team.
Yeah.
I
mean, he's not quite Kai Kamara, but
no, he's getting. Jarrett, what do you think?
I think a lot of it has to do with him. Is he's at his best when it's kind of like the Joe Johnson syndrome when Joe Johnson was with the Hawks. He's at his best when he's not the number one option. He was at his best in Atlanta when he was down, when you weren't thinking about him, when Joseph was creating gravity, Almiron was creating gravity. You had threats on the other side of the field. He does his best work when you have other people to worry about, because if you can key in on him, I don't think he's fast enough to create his own space. I don't think he's good enough in 1v1s to create his own space. He needs to be to maximize his impact, which is, as you mentioned, Dylan, it's very sizable. He needs to be almost not an afterthought, but like he needs to be like, you're not focusing on him. You're leaving him 1v1 with somebody where he can try and move off the ball to create space, and then hit those cutbacks that he hits so well for a guy like Messi. Like if you told me that he ends up in double-digit assists and like 70% of them are him just hitting cutbacks to the penalty spot to Messi, I would put whatever Halloween candy juice boxes you want on that bet. But I think he's just I think he'll be fine there, just depending on how Tata Martino deploys him. But I think he's at his best when he is kind of a complimentary piece, and I don't mean that as an insult.
Well, and I think too, he was at his best under Tata as well, right? So maybe he knows as well how to best utilize him. And you're right. I love the comparison with Joe Johnson. I quickly had a flashback to like I think I did it for a year. One of the wire services. I covered the Brooklyn Nets home games for like a year, and he was on that team. He was, and just as you said, Jarrett, he wasn't like the guy. That was Brooklyn Nets with KG. So KG was the guy, but like Johnson was killing him, man. What a great shooter.
Oh yeah, when he was here, he was the because he was the guy in Atlanta during those kind of weird years where they were terrible. They were coming out of being a laughingstock to just kind of being stuck in the mediocre era, and it was ISO Joe was the thing. And it was like it was you had Mike Bibby for a bit running point. You had Joe Johnson, then you had like a young Jeff Teague, Josh Smith, the most frustrating basketball player I've ever seen in my life, who could physically dominate anyone on the court, but then decided that he just wanted to turn into Ray Allen. Like it was a very weird time, but yeah, Atlanta just leaned on Joe Johnson. He was fine. I mean, they got to playoffs doing that, but yeah, he wasn't at his best. I think if you leaned on a guy like Russell, like you'd be okay. But I think if you can get him in a situation like this where he is going to be down the pecking order, he becomes an absolute problem.
Well, he will certainly be down that pecking order. That's
no doubt.
Like I said, I don't want that to come across as like an insult to Julian. It's just
numbers.
Not, and also the thing in sports that we go over in other sports, especially, is not everybody can be the top dog. But if you can just kind of float out there and be the other option or the guy supplying, you have a hell of a time and you can be insanely successful.
Mm-hmm. The other move that has happened in recent order, Dylan, Dax McCarty to Atlanta United. We had Lucas Panzica, the play-by-play voice for Nashville, on batting leadoff this morning. He was our Rod Carew this morning, and broke everything down from his perspective about what Dax was in Nashville and what he's anticipating in Atlanta. When you saw Dax McCarty come across Atlanta United's bow, what'd you think?
I think it's a good move. I think there's a need in his position, especially if you start to think about guys who will likely be leaving in the transfer window, right? So I think in that sense, it's a smart move. Obviously, a terrific veteran. He's very, very good in the locker room as well. It's funny. He's everything I think Atlanta probably hoped they would have gotten from Ozzie Alonso, but Ozzie was hurt the whole time. So Dax, knock on wood, hasn't really had that problem. He's been a pretty healthy guy. So, I think why not? Take a swing towards his way. I love the move. I think he's still got a lot to give, and similar to what Jarrett was saying before. Like I don't think he's not gonna be relied upon. I don't think, at least, to be a 32 game starter, right? So there'll be some opportunities there for him to show why he's one of the best to play that position in MLS.
Jarrett, what's on your mind?
And I wanted to go back to Miami because I don't know if y'all hit this off the leadoff or what. I wanted to ask you about the Miami roster versus that schedule, because my God, like, I get that it's anytime you have Messi, you kind of have a traveling circus.
Yes.
How concerned should we be about those guys holding up just over the immense amount of traveling games they're going to play over the 2024 calendar year?
Yeah, they are like me at Mohegan Sun, just chips all in. Here we go. It's gonna be fun. That's I know, John. You and I spoke about that last week a little bit. I don't to have the full traveling circus, the whole Messi and Friends experience. I don't know how many games that's going to be, because you've got to factor in Leagues Cup as well. You're probably looking at what they're going to play 40 plus games this year, certainly, right? Like somewhere in that Champions League, right? They're in Champions League as well, or Champions Cup. Sorry.
Yeah, they are in the hemisphere extravaganza. Yes.
So 23, maybe optimistically looking at it, but I mean, certainly there's places at Suarez. I mean, he's not playing at Gillette Stadium. I don't know how good the turf is at Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, it's
so I think a lot of places that have turf, I'd imagine, considering his injury issues and history, not happening. I think Busquets held up pretty well, right? Alba he got hurt obviously with Messi as well. So
right.
It's a good question for sure.
Well, but I mean, I would think
there's got to be a juice box for that, right?
Oh, no doubt. I would think that you front load everything. I legitimately, this is what I think. As followers of the sport in other countries, and especially in the lower divisions. In the lower divisions, if you're trying to get promoted, you get out to that hot start. And in taking that frame of reference, I figure you're going to see the Super Friends starting an ish load of games up front. And they're going to try to rack up as many points as they can going into schedule compression, going into international windows. And they're going to come off with this hot start, and everybody's going to sit there and go, "Oh, they're going to go undefeated. It's going to be that, it's going to be like Arsenal." And then they're going to try to hang on to their position at the end because of schedule compression, because of all the competitions, because of all those other elements that were attached to. I think that early on in the schedule, you're going to see a starting lineup that's going to see Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets, you name it, whomever. Bring in Eric Cantona or whatever. But you're going to see the all-stars up front in the schedule. They're going to try to rack up as many points as possible and then try to hang on and work their way through schedule compression and all these other competitions. Like I said,
what could be interesting is what their look at Leagues Cup will be interesting. Yeah. Because, they won it this past year. Messi had just got there, so obviously he's going to want to play. But I'll tell you, look, there's a nice carrot to be had there to win that. Mm-hmm. You even heard Tata say it, right? Like by winning it, by going for that, it hurt them later in the season. Do you more or less kind of punt on that, right? You play your, 2-3 games?
Yeah. In the stage, yeah.
Yeah, go young on that, punt, and now you've got 2-3 weeks off in the middle of the season to at the warmest part of the season as well for these guys to get rested up.
Ooh, I like that. I like that idea. I think that's something I think you hang on to that. And I think that later in the year, I think that and regrettably, I think the game against Messi and friends here in Atlanta is a midweek game late in the schedule. I think that if you've got a midweek game, and of course, obviously game state and schedules and standings have a play in this, but I think that if it's a game in the midweek, do not, as a guidepost right now, anticipate that you will see full Messi and friends on display in your venue because of everything that we're talking about.
By the way, how about SKC? That's an interesting move. I love to be in that conference room where Vermees was pitched this idea of let's go out of our comfort zone and our very very sizable home field advantage to a larger stadium, and they're marketing it as, hey, it's going to be the loudest. We're going to get all the Kansas City fans. Well, hang on, you're opening the door to a lot of Messi fans in there. I don't, and I know a lot of Red Bull fans are like, oh, I wonder would that mean MetLife? Like, wow. If I'm a marketing guy, or I'm sorry, if I'm a marketing guy, I think you like it. But I think if you're a sporting guy, you stick to your guns with where you play, right? So
yeah, you would think so. But hey, go for that. Go for the cash. If it's there, then if you go to Jiha and Arrowhead or whatever you want to call it, but you want to go and you got 65,000 and you got the opportunity to sit there and sell out that stadium and make bank on something like this, and then watch him not play.
Yeah.
Shoot. But how many more teams do you think will shift that idea this year and go to the local football stadium and American football and do it like they're doing in Kansas City, where they're going from Children's Mercy to Jiha or GEHA or whatever they want to call it now, because I've heard it both.
Every time you're saying that, I keep thinking you're saying jihad, and you're getting me worried.
Yeehaw!
Jihad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, jihad. Well, you could have MLS fans do a jihad. It doesn't work. But how many more American football stadia would you anticipate doing this kind of thing? because they do it for El Clasico already. They move it to the Rose Bowl, and they'll have 80,000 folks there just because it is what it is. How many more Messi and friends move would you anticipate here?
Well, I mean, think about sort of the stadiums and who could do that, right? Like, I think Houston would be a prime candidate, right? Like,
Houston and NRG,
right?
And it would be a warm up for 2026 and the Copas and things.
I don't, as a rival, I don't see Orlando doing that. Red Bull, it would be an option again with MetLife. NYCFC already plays in a larger stadium anyway, right? So not a concern there. Same with New England, Cincinnati.
You play at River. You play at Paul Brown. You play at Riverfront, or the new Riverfront.
Yeah, I don't know. My gut is I don't think it's the start of a trend.
Okay. Oh, by the way,
and will Taylor Swift be at that game? By the way,
absolutely.
The wild part's going to be is if you start seeing Messi end up having to rest home games because they're selling out an 80,000 seat stadium on the road. If you're going to rest, you got to do it here in Miami. Mm-hmm. Go to the beach, go have some pizza, go watch the boys play.
And by the way, he's already going to be at MetLife with Argentina in Copa America. So probably another reason not to go that route if you're Red Bull.
Since we're mentioning Messi and friends in a Wall Pass Wednesday, our friends at Talk Sport headline: Forgotten Aston Villa man Philippe Coutinho could become Lionel Messi's new teammate at Inter Miami. Currently on a season-long loan to a team in Qatar, Al Dahail, but it has not gone according to plan. 6 league starts, 419 minutes in Doha. According to AS, his limited game time could see the Brazilian ace be reunited with Messi this January. So Philippe Coutinho apparently is now in the mix. So you could have Coutinho, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, and Messi for Messi and friends, Dylan.
And Gressel. Another chance for Gressel to show that he doesn't have to be the guy.
Does Talk Sport just have a 20-sided die? Do they just have, or even a collection of them, and they just roll it every morning and just see what can we speak into the world?
They're quoting AS in Spain. I mean, it's not even the 20-sided die.
Man.
Where you're trying to figure out, okay, do I walk into the room, roll the dice? Do I pull my weapon, roll the dice? Oh, it's an ogre. What do? I cast a spell. That's Talk Sport to us.
No, if they see an ogre, they roll the dice and they want to see how much money Chelsea's going to give to the ogre to come play.
Yes. Oh my God.
Well, if we learned anything about Miami's entrance into MLS, it's that as soon as Beckham was introduced as an owner, you knew this was going to be the rumor central. Of like it used to be the Galaxy and then a little bit LAFC, but it is all about Miami, man. I kind of feel for their PR team, just fielding all these calls about all these wild rumors that are out there.
Well, and then the access, because traditionally, and this was something that Thierry Henry had mentioned when he was a player in Major League Soccer, the access that the media have on a daily basis to cover clubs. And it's probably something that the media teams here in the States are learning. It's like, okay, we're going to act normally, but then you have, as Hutch refers to them, the Messateers. You got Messi and friends who aren't used to this kind of access every day and wanting to stick microphones in people's faces and things like that. I mean, it's a challenge for the media relations side for all of these clubs with the international players.
Yeah, dude, I interviewed Thierry Henry. Red Bull didn't have their training facility yet. They were at Montclair State University.
Ooh.
I interviewed him in a trailer that the Red Bulls had set up. It was like a media workroom / interview room. I remember that. I remember it being cold, and it was like, this is bizarre. This is like one of the greatest players ever, and we're in this like trailer interviewing him. But listen, I've also been around this league long enough where I remember there used to be such a thing as pregame access, like, so I would be in the locker room and they'd be playing, soccer, tennis in the locker room, and you go up to whoever and it was unfiltered. You weren't with a PR person. It was similar to like Jarrett, we were talking about NBA before. It's similar to like NBA or MLB where, the clock was winding down. You had this access before. All right, you're out, and but yes, that's when the players were mostly American players, right? Or not the upper echelon European or South American players, where the access is obviously completely different. So it is a interesting tug of war that you kind of have to play there, where you as a PR person in MLS, you want to get your team as much access as possible. But you've got to balance it with players who, the year before never did interviews.
Mm-hmm. And the fun balance therein. You sent me an email with a clip from the IG, the Gram, or the Insta, whatever the kids call it these days, where you're calling hoops from Varsity Media. So Varsity Media on the IG. And it's always fun to hear you with the highlights. So what is going on these days with you there at Varsity Media with the high school stuff and all of the big matchups that you're covering with underneath a roof, and what's going on with MLSsoccer.com and what's going on with OSDB Sports?
Yeah, and that was the game with Boogie Flan that I was telling you about last week.
The amusement park, Boogie Flan.
So here's the funny thing, right? So I know, John, this will definitely resonate with you. Dealing with similar age kids there in Atlanta, right? So Boogie Flan, had to do my research for this game. He's number 18 in the country by ESPN in his grade. He's a number 2 point guard in his class, right? He's likely going to be a McDonald's All-American, 5-star recruit, going to Kentucky, had like 28 or 30 offers before that. And all the blue bloods in college basketball among them. Steps on the court on the road at the Ravens Nest in the Parkchester section of the Bronx. First minute, what do the fans start chanting? Overrated. Like, come on. Can you not wait? Like, maybe if he has 6 points by the fourth quarter and you're leading by 16, maybe start the chant then. You don't start it in the first minute of a game. Now, he didn't go off, but he did get 21 points, finished around the hoop, was big down the stretch. Danny Carbucia, his partner in crime, he plays for the, I think, U18 Dominican Republic team. Very, very good point guard. Forgot his jersey at home, so he had to change the number, but he brought his game to the Bronx and had 20. So that was a fun one. Last night or yesterday afternoon, they moved the game up because of the inclement weather here in the tri-state area, but that was a fun one. Next Tuesday, we've got another big game. St. Francis Prep, Christ the King. Ooh. Lamar Odom and Speedy Claxton, now the head coach at Hofstra, right, among the alums. Jose Alvarado, right now.
Atlanta Hawks legend Speedy Claxton.
Yeah.
From the dark ages.
Even darker than the Joe Johnson days. All alums of Christ the King, so it's a great basketball factory. So that should be a fun one Tuesday at 7:30. MLS, silly season going on. Might have there might be. I'm not sure, John, how long you're on today, but there might be some breaking news around noonish.
Oh, okay. 11:05. So keep an eye on it.
With an outbound transfer. We'll say that.
Outbound transfer about noon, so we'll sit there and we'll put those down. Okay.
And for OSDB, I think we're gonna Suarez is gonna have himself a press conference on Saturday, right? So I'll break that down for OSDBsports.com.
Oh, goodness gracious. It's the busy season, although the busy season takes its different forms. Dylan, my friend, it's always great to catch up with you when you can. Inclement weather and you're fighting. Oh, before you go.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to driving, this
Yes.
was one of the things that we talked about in hour number 1.
All right.
For me, since I'm down here at the beach this week because it's anniversary, we had the storm that's your way now. People feel compelled to drive faster over a bridge in a 25 or 30 mile an hour crosswind because they think it'll get them there faster. We've had people talking about having the emergency flashers on when they're not necessary, when folks are driving on the freeways. What is your largest driving pet peeve?
There's a few. I would say that combination. When it's storming, like last night, coming home, it was just nasty, right? So, you got to go middle lane and just go slow, right? But then you got people speeding by in the left lane, speeding then through standing water, and now they splash your windshield, and that's dangerous. And but it's the opposite as well, right? Beautiful weather. Mm-hmm. You're in the middle or left lane, and the guy's going like 45. Like, what are we doing, dude? Like now that's as as dangerous as a guy going maybe 75, mm-hmm. right, or 80. So you have to now get out of maybe the left lane to try to go to the middle lane and zoom around that. So I would say too fast and too slow, but probably too slow really bugged me. Because if I'm in the left lane and someone's coming up behind me and they want to go faster, I'll get out of the way, no problem, go right ahead, keep going.
Yep.
But it's the slow pokes who aren't in the right lane that really bother me.
Okay. All right. Just figured I'd ask. And so when you're off, I'll ask Jarrett. And so Jarrett, because this seems to be our Wall Pass Wednesday question of the day. It has gravitated in that direction. Be safe, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
All right, boys.